on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to South Asia. Now, the Taliban spokesperson has stated that Afghanistan has the right to defend its territorial and aerial sovereignty. This comes as Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif stated that he strongly condemned provocations by Afghanistan. He's vowed a strong and effective response after border clashes between the neighboring countries had escalated overnight. Sharif has accused the Taliban authorities in Afghanistan of allowing their land to be used by terrorist elements, particularly the TTP. He has stated there will be no compromise on Pakistan's defense. The Taliban spokesperson has in fact stated that Afghanistan will not leave any aggression unanswered. Listen in.
په دې مهمه زماني مقطع کې چې افغانستان ځینې سیاسي او اقتصادي پرمختګونه تجربه کوي له افغانستان سره په فرضي کرښه کې شخړو ته لمن وهي. د افغانستان د هوایي قلمرو نقض او کرښې ته نږدې په عامه ځایونو بمبار چې الحمدلله هر ځل غاښ ماتونکی ځواب ورکړل شوی او دا د ټولو ته جوته وي چې افغانستان له خپل ځمکني او هوایي حریم څخه د دفاع حق لري او کوم تیریګر بې ځوابه نه پرېږدي.
This all comes as Afghan officials have stated that 58 Pakistani soldiers have been killed in retaliatory operations. Meanwhile, a Pakistani official has stated that Pakistan fired light and then heavy artillery at 4 points along the border. He has added that Pakistani forces shot down 3 Afghan quadcopters suspected of carrying explosives. We've of course been seeing the situation along the contentious Durand line explode over the last couple of days. In fact, Saudi Arabia and Iran have put out statements. They've reacted to these developments, calling for Pakistan and Afghanistan to exercise restraint. But as of the latest, border crossings have been closed across the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The Taliban government, as you've just heard in the soundbite, has made its position extremely clear, stating that it will not tolerate any aggression by Pakistan. In the meantime, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has claimed that Afghan territory is being used by terrorist groups like the Taliban Pakistan to carry out attacks in Pakistan. We've seen a recent spike in such attacks that have taken place within Pakistan itself. In the latest, the TTP had claimed responsibility for deadly attacks in several districts in the northwestern region of Pakistan in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that killed 20 security officials and 3 civilians as well. This is, of course, a crucial development that comes even as the Afghan Foreign Minister is in New Delhi, and India is now upgrading its ties with Kabul, reopening its embassy. We've also recently seen the Moscow format dialogue take place in Russia, where all countries who are participating have backed Afghanistan in asserting its sovereignty as far as the US demand for the Bagram Air Base continues. But in the meantime, this is the latest that we're tracking from South Asia. Taliban spokesperson has stated that Afghanistan has the right to defend its territorial and aerial sovereignty. We had seen Pakistani strikes taking place in Kabul a couple of days ago, 2 days ago to be very specific, something that Afghanistan has strongly slammed and stated was a violation of its sovereign territory. In the meantime, Pakistan responded by claiming that Afghanistan is provocating Islamabad on the other hand. He has stated and accused the Taliban authorities in Afghanistan of allowing their land to be used by terrorist elements, and has emphasized that there will be no compromise on responding to terrorist threats that threaten Pakistani defense. These escalations have been taking place across the Durand line in particular over the last 2 days. As I mentioned earlier, Saudi Arabia and Iran have reacted to all of this, urging all parties to exercise restraint in the meantime. But we've also seen the recent statement, the recent soundbite that we just played out, that the Taliban government has made its position very clear, stating that it will not tolerate any aggression by Pakistan. On that note, let's in fact listen in to the soundbite of the Taliban administration official once again relaying their message to Pakistan.
زمانی مقطع کې چې افغانستان ځینې سیاسي او اقتصادي پرمختګونه تجربه کوي له افغانستان سره په فرضي کرښه کې شخړو ته لمن وهي د افغانستان د هوایي قلمرو نقض او کرښې ته نږدې په عامه ځایونو بمبار چې الحمدلله هر ځل غاښ ماتونکی ځواب ورکړل شوی او دا د ټولو ته جوته وي چې افغانستان له خپل ځمکني او هوایي حریم څخه د دفاع حق لري او کوم تیریګر بې ځوابه نه پرېږدي.
With us on the broadcast is Sadaf Yarmal, Afghan journalist, joining us from Quetta in Pakistan. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. What we've witnessed over the last 2 days is a very serious escalation along the Afpak border, the contentious Durand line. Border crossings are closed now as well. The Taliban government has just issued a statement. We've heard what the Taliban regime has stated. They will not tolerate any aggression by Pakistan. Where do you see this headed? Could the situation escalate even further?
Thanks for having me. And what we are seeing now is one of the most serious military escalations between Afghanistan and Pakistan in recent years, after Pakistan's airstrikes inside Kabul and Paktia province of Afghanistan, regardless of Pakistan claiming it's targeting TTP leaders. This way widely seen inside Afghanistan as a clear violation of Afghan sovereignty. Even many Afghans who strongly oppose the Taliban do not support foreign military attacks on Afghan soil. Following this, the Taliban carried out what they described as a retaliatory operation along the border, targeting Pakistani military posts, and reports from the Taliban Ministry of Defense claims that 58 Pakistani soldiers were killed. The situation can escalate further, and especially because both sides are using strong military languages, and neither wants to appear weak. If diplomacy does not intervene, we could see continued border clashes and even the involvement of regional actors. So yes, the risk of escalation is very real.
Indeed, and we've also seen a statement that has been put out by Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. He's claimed that Afghan territory is being used by terrorist groups like the TTP to carry out attacks in Pakistan. I wanted to understand from you, Sadaf, what weight does this statement really hold?
Pakistan's claims is not new. It has repeatedly accused the Taliban of harboring or tolerating the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or TTP inside Afghanistan. There is evidence that TTP figures do operate from Afghan territory, particularly along the eastern provinces. However, Islamabad's airstrikes inside Afghanistan are not a legitimate solution and only increase tensions. Also, this accusation ignores a key reality. Pakistan itself supported various militant groups in the region for decades, including factions that benefited from cross-border sanctuaries. So now, when Pakistan accuses Afghanistan, many of us see this as a hypocrisy. In summary, while Pakistan's security concerns about TTP are not baseless, using military forces and violating Afghan sovereignty will only push the Taliban into a more hostile position instead of encouraging cooperation.
Indeed, and there's been another development in South Asia at large. Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi has met Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar in New Delhi. India has stated that it will reopen its embassy in Kabul, which it had earlier downgraded to an office after the withdrawal of US troops in 2021. And now, according to you, what are the larger geopolitical implications of this development?
India's decision to move towards restoring full diplomatic presence in Kabul is a major geopolitical step. Firstly, it signals that India is now willing to engage with the Taliban to protect its strategic interest in the region. Secondly, this creates new pressure on Pakistan, which has always viewed Afghanistan as part of its security sphere. Closer to India, Taliban engagement weakens Pakistan's traditional influence over Afghan affairs. And thirdly, this shift also reflects a regional realignment, with China deepening its presence in Afghanistan and Russia increasing contacts with Kabul. India cannot afford to be left out. So reopening the embassy is not just about diplomacy, it's about competition for influence in Central and South Asia.
All right, Ms. Sadaf, I would like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to us. We're also being joined by Major General Gigi Dwivedi, defense expert from New Delhi. Sir, I'd like to point out something that Sadaf has referred to. She's spoken about the fact that there is an influence game going on in South Asia. You know, China has its eyes on Afghanistan as well. So does Russia. In fact, Russia was the first country to recognize the Taliban regime. And speaking of Russia, we've also seen the recent Moscow format meeting taking place, where one very crucial aspect that was emphasized upon was Afghanistan's sovereignty. This is with regards to recent demands that Donald Trump has been making. He's been publishing on Truth Social for US access to the Bagram air base. Afghanistan has once again, while their foreign minister was in India, made it very clear that Afghanistan's sovereignty will be its very first priority. Now, in your assessment, what are Russia's interests in the region? What does Russia stand to gain by doing all of this?
The first and foremost, the point is Afghanistan has always been an arena of superpower rivalry, or the interests of great powers have been here because of its strategic location. You know, in the 80s, the Soviet Union then, they invaded Afghanistan, and ultimately they're defeated by the Americans with the help of Pakistan. And then the Americans came in, and they ultimately had to leave in 2021. The point I'm trying to make is Afghanistan has always been an arena of superpower rivalry because of his geostrategic location. The second point is, as Russia was in Afghanistan in the 80s, now they want to get back their influence, having now seen that Americans have also been kicked out. So therefore, their rivalry is back again, but in different form. Now the major interest is economics. Well, Chinese want to extend their China-Pakistan economic corridor right into Afghanistan, and also that gives them access to the West Asian countries. Now Russia want to again get back into Afghanistan because doesn't want to yield way, though it was thrown out in the 80s. And of course, Pakistan has intense interest because it always treated that friendly Afghanistan will ensure a strategic depth and also secure its western borders. But the point you are trying to make is why Russia is now interested, because Russia definitely has immense interest because it doesn't want the Americans to have a free pass, or the American getting back, or they're trying to get back to the Bagram air base. And of course, today, China and Russia are part of the same camp. So therefore, they would like America to be in Afghanistan because that is not very conducive to the strategic interest of either Russia or China. And finally, as far as India is concerned, we have already had historical ties with Afghanistan, and today we are trying to work back the ties again. Of course, the Taliban, when they came in, India was slightly skeptical, but please remember, we have invested about $3 billion for the infrastructure, for the projects which are friendly for people, and of course we don't want the Pakistan influence back there. And today Pakistan and Afghanistan today they are almost at war with each other, and we want to build a relationship, and that's why for Afghani's foreign minister is in India, and we are trying to get back the political and diplomatic process again on track. Yeah.
Indeed, Afghanistan is popularly known as the graveyard of empires, and you've pointed out China's interest in the region. Now, Afghanistan is a signatory to the Belt and Road Initiative since 2023. But I wanted to understand from you, considering these recent border clashes that have taken place near the contentious Durand line, how comfortable would the Taliban regime really be with the extension of the CPEC in particular to their territory?
Well, Pia, first and foremost, I think Chinese are really having a rethink on this CPEC, and I have served as defense attaché in China, so I understand their mind very clearly, because the kind of unrest or the hostile environment that are there through the areas which the CPEC runs through, whether it is POK, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Balochistan, all these areas are very hostile. And Chinese had taken casualties, number of Chinese have been actually killed in this region. So Chinese actually have called the Pakistan leaders a couple of times to put across to them that either they give full security or they will have a rethink on CPEC. And in fact, the Chinese have now deployed their own security agencies to ensure that there is a degree of security for the Chinese national and also for the projects they are looking at. But the point is that why Chinese wanted to extend the CPEC into Afghanistan, because Afghanistan has rich unexploited minerals. Then it gives them the access into the West Asia, to Iran, and also to other Central Asian republics. Now that's why they were keen that this should get extended into Afghanistan, because that gives them a fair amount of leverage as far as the resources and control of Afghanistan is concerned, because neither Chinese nor Russian want American back in Afghanistan. So it is both geopolitical interest, economic interest, and of course interest for gaining influence in the region, because wherever Americans vacate, Chinese are very quick to step in. So it's a game, a big power game going on, and has number of issues attached, whether it be a geopolitics, geoeconomics, or influence per se. Pia.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your analysis of the larger geopolitical game that is going on in South Asia. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to Madagascar. A contingent of Madagascar's military has declared that it is now controlling the country's armed forces after joining anti-government protesters calling for President Andry Rajoelina to step down. In a statement that has been put out, officers from the elite CAPSAT unit have stated that all army orders would now come from their headquarters, effectively defying the government. The presidency warned of an attempted illegal seizure of power, as protests which began over water and power shortages have now spiraled into demands for Rajoelina's resignation. At least 22 people have lost their lives since September, when these protests cropped up. This information according to the United Nations, although the Madagascar government disputes that particular figure. CAPSAT troops who once helped Rajoelina seize power in a coup in 2009 have called on other soldiers to support the people. Meanwhile, President Rajoelina has urged calm and dialogue, warning against destabilizing the country as thousands continue to rally in the country's capital. More news coming in, this time from South America. Firefighters in Peru are battling a massive blaze that has swept through a neighborhood on the outskirts of Lima. Authorities say that at least 100 homes have been destroyed and around 300 residents have been affected in the Pamplona Alta area of San Juan de Miraflores. 4 people were injured in the fire, which spread rapidly through the densely packed hillside community. Emergency crews worked through the night to contain the flames as families searched through the rubble for whatever little they could salvage. Listen in to what some of the residents have had to say.
Los bomberos llegaron cuando ya terminó ya, todo ya. Así todo ya. Y por atrás llegaron porque no hay ni agua tampoco, pero llegan para acá no hay ni agua.
Los vecinos comenzaron a gritar, comenzaron a decir, incendio, incendio, puta viejo, he sacado mis perros, he comenzado a sacar mis cosas, ayudar a los vecinos, pues, ¿no? Mientras tanto sacar a la gente, a los animales más que todo. Ayudar acá, pues, hermano, toda la gente que vive acá.
We're now learning that Cameroonians are voting in a presidential election where 92-year-old Paul Biya, the world's oldest sitting ruler, is widely expected to extend his 43-year grip on power. Biya, who has led the Central African nation since 1982, faces several challenges, including former government spokesperson Issa Chiroma, who has drawn large crowds calling for change. Despite renewed energy from the opposition, analysts say that Biya remains the clear favourite, citing his tight control over state institutions and a divided opposition bloc. Voting commenced early today in cities including Douala, with observers watching closely for signs of voter turnout and any reports of unrest. More news coming in, this time from Colombia. The Colombian army has presented its first drone battalion to attack and defend itself against illegal armed groups such as guerrillas, which used these types of aircrafts to target uniformed personnel and civilians in a modality that has transformed the nature of armed conflict. Colombian General Carlos Padilla, commander of the Army Aviation Division, has stated that the conflict in Colombia has developed based on certain technological advances, especially given by small unmanned aircrafts. Listen in to what General Carlos has had to say.
Muy buenas tardes. El conflicto en Colombia ha tenido un desarrollo basado en algunos avances tecnológicos, especialmente dado por estas pequeñas aeronaves no tripuladas. En lo que va corrido en año y medio, hemos sido presa de alrededor de 350 o más de 350 ataques con drones a las propias tropas. Debido a eso, tenemos 15 militares asesinados y tenemos alrededor de 170 heridos. Es decir, pues al final del día todos estos drones nos dan una capacidad de ojos en el aire en profundidad que no teníamos antes. Y es lo que queremos aprovechar no solamente con este batallón, digamos con mayores extensiones, sino también para todo el ejército.
Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is